Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review Deserted by Gatecreeper. This is the sophomore full-length album from death metal band Gatecreeper, released on RELAPSE Records. And now, to be honest, I haven't found that many recent releases in death metal that would actually impress me. It's not like I was ever the hugest stan of death metal in the first place, but there are albums that I like in the genre, and more recently I sense a downgrade in the quality of death metal music. However, when I first heard the really short debut from Gatecreeper going for 30 minutes long, Sonor and Deprivation, I was quite impressed with this album. This one was such a beautiful and really nasty and brutal death metal sound. It was not necessarily something unique or something we haven't heard before, but it was such an energetic and a really heavy and brutal death metal album. I really liked the vibe to it, and it was definitely one of the most refreshing ones I've heard in death metal recently. And so this made me quite excited for the next album of Gatecreeper, especially considering that this album cover over here is impressive. I really love this sort of style, and so it was one of the few occasions where I would actually be quite excited for a death metal release. And what we have with the sophomore album is longer tracks, it's more fleshed out, the ideas drag for a bit longer, and this one is even slower. This one goes even more to the death doom metal sound. It doesn't have that much of the sort of hardcore punk element like it was with the first album. This one is far slower, the ideas and the riffs are far heavier, and we're still talking about a really nasty and really aggressive album. And it's honestly one of the better releases in metal you can find recently. Like, especially for death metal, I would say that this is possibly my favorite one from this year. I haven't heard that many death metal albums from this year, but I highly doubt that something would bring the energy and this sort of nasty and refreshing sound that they managed to pull up with their sophomore album over here. Deserted is a really good album, and it's a really good sequel to a quite interesting and really spectacular debut. I wouldn't necessarily say though that it's better from its predecessor. I think that some of the ideas over here, they drag for a bit longer. It's not as short, as straight to the point, and as relentless as Sonor and Deprivation. And what they have done with Deserted is not that much different with their previous effort. Sure, it's slower, at times it's a bit heavier, but it doesn't bring something all that new. It's not as explosive as what happened with their debut, but still there are not bad moments out of this album. Not would I say that there are moments that are mind-blowing or extremely amazing. This album mostly goes into the middle point. It's quite consistent, and it mostly offers some quite decent and solid tracks. Though I would say that if I had to pick some of my highlights on this album, I would definitely put the self-titled one, the first track, Deserted. This is the longest track on the album, going for 5 minutes and 20 seconds long, and this track is just really heavy and an impressive introduction to what is going to come up next with the rest of the album. It's also one of the tracks that has a standout combination of both the really slow and heavy doom sound and also some of the most energetic and aggressive moments that go more into the hardcore punk sound. Other highlights have to be the tracks From the Ashes and the quite ruthless track Ruthless. And Barbaric Pleasures has easily some of my favorite death metal riffs I've heard in a very long time. On the other hand, some of the moments that were a bit more forgettable for me were towards the second half, with tracks like the 5-minute Sweltering Madness. It's a bit long-winded and slow-paced track, and also the track Absence of Light is also a track that is possibly the slowest moment on the album, but it's possibly also the least aggressive. This is a track that ends the album on a sort of a slower and a smoother note, if you count out the Anxiety bonus track, which is actually one of the most energetic and faster paced tracks out of the album. It goes closer to the sound they developed with their debut. But with that being said, this is another solid work from Gatecreeper. I quite like this release. This is easily one of my favorite extreme metal albums from this year. Really heavy, really brutal, great production, some really sick riffs and vocals, and in general, a quite fulfilling experience. Maybe not up to par with their debut, and almost all of the tracks are just decent, but still, I'm going to give Deserted a 7- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it? Dislike it? Why? And what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.